Got down on our knees, and we asked her to marry us, and she said no. You feel awful. You know, do you want to lose, David? No. Nobody wants to win. Everybody wants to win. I want players that hate to lose. Plain and simple. I want players that I know when the game is over, they are crawling into the locker room and they need help getting their gear off. It's going to take time to do the shower. I want the buses to be late to the airport if we travel. We all handle defeat differently. And it's hot. And it's hot.
Good to say I'm a sore loser.
All right. Homage. Light a candle in the window. It is the C3 Carolina Panthers Podcast. We're here in mourning tonight. We're mourning a big loss, a squandering of an opportunity. We're closing out a phenomenal season. 55 episodes. It's been a great ride that ended in heartbreak. It's the C3 Podcast tonight, and we are going to share in this misery, in this sadness. We win together, Panther fans. We lose together. And tonight, I'm losing with my boy, Joey Riolano, a.k.a. that freaking Puerto Rican. What's up, Joe?
Tony, it's been 55 weeks of pure pleasure being on this podcast. But tonight's episode, I feel, has a bit somber of a mood. You know, it was a spectacular season, that's undeniable. But the way it ended, it leaves such a hollow feeling and such a feeling of unfulfilled potential that can only be realized by losers of a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? You can't really experience it, this sort of sadness any other way. It's a good night here in Charleston. It's cold, man. Charleston doesn't get cold often, but it's cold tonight, and I think that's quite apropos for the mood that we have on tonight's show.
Our guest Joey is bundled up. We got Tripp Morgan, C3 writer, a Panther fan, aficionado, my brother, that we went to the NFC Championship. We've had some good moments, Tripp. Not so good on Sunday. Thanks for joining the podcast for the first time.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a heck of a season. But when you have a season like this, it makes a loss on this stage much, much, much harder, especially the way it went down with us in particular. But I'm ready to get into it and hash out all this mess. So.
All right. Well, we're going to bring it. Panther fans, you can, as normal, you can tweet the show using the hashtag C3. Tonight's episode, Joey, is going back JFK style on this. Victory has 1,000 fathers, but defeat is an orphan. Episode 15.55, the Carolina Panthers. You know, tonight we're gonna brood over a lost opportunity that was Super Bowl 50. We're gonna celebrate a stunning season, and we're gonna talk about Cam Newton as a player and a leader. Figure out just how disappointed Panther Nation should be after this past weekend. We'll get into coaching, mistakes, and even some standouts like Coney Ely. You can follow the C3 Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, like us, give us a share. We're going to continue bringing it to you each and every week, breaking down the Carolina Panthers. But instead of breaking them down, we're going to be building them up from this day going forward. But today's show will not be a happy one, but it will be a celebration. You know, it's kind of like a funeral. We're laying this season to rest tonight. Funerals can be very somber moments, but they can also be a moment of celebration and admiration, and that's what we're going to do tonight, Joey. Do you think that you can find that celebration? First of all, is that funeral like comparison too far?
No, I don't think so. I think you can celebrate somebody's life. And I think, we're celebrating this season, and the season has ended, so it's somewhat of symbolically the season's dead. And instead of having, a peaceful night's sleep and just not waking up the next morning, we were murdered. Yeah. So it's kind of what it feels like.
we were murdered.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting way of. All right. And actually, I'm going to say this: the prime suspect in Thug is our guest.
The ultimate troll.
You look like a thug. Why are you so bundled? Let me ask you this: will you be back next season?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Okay. Well, enough with that. Actually, what do you think about the funeral comparison, Tripp? Is that too far? Were we Joey? Well done.
The way Joey put it, now I'm starting to double think myself. But I think I see the symbolic reasoning behind it. But this season has been absolutely amazing and historic on so many levels. We lost the main game. It's kind of like the season almost doesn't matter in a way if in a sense, when you lose the game that you wanted to. You'd rather go, if you could do it and go 7-9 and win the Super Bowl, you'd rather have that and have the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like I said, a loss on this stage after a season like we had makes it so much harder. So, I mean, maybe it's not too far, but we have something to celebrate. This isn't like we're losing core pieces next season.
You're so right about pointing out this, Tripp, is what you've really pointed out is the better you do, right? The higher you climb, the fall is so much more tragic in some ways. If we were 2-14 and we lost, who gives a shit?
Right.
Well, we were
Think about
14, we wouldn't have been there. Right, I know what you're saying.
If after we won this NFC Championship game, privately some of us discussed, well, what if we hadn't lost to Atlanta? Think about that now. Mm-hmm. What if we hadn't lost to Atlanta? We're undefeated coming into the Super Bowl and lost. This hurts now. I think I can't imagine how much more upset I'd be if we were undefeated and did this. It hurts either way. But
I must say this pain is pretty bad. But
yeah, it is. This is 2003 hurt. This one's hard to take. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh gosh, I don't know. We'll talk about that a little later. Let's go ahead and jump in the show. If I can get the sound going. Jeez, Tony, so sad.
Good day, mate. Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
No, I'm just getting warm. Here's Charlie facing the fire, and there's George hiding in Big Daddy's pocket.
Dylan and Dylan, because I spit hot fire.
Like a flamethrower to this place.
What's hot on C3? Hot like a branding iron, Carolina fell 24-10 in Super Bowl 50. I was gutted Sunday, guys. Yesterday I was sad and downtrodden, and today set in the anger and the disappointment. As Denver fans celebrated, the media piled on Cam, and fans piled on the coaching, I found myself upset, fellas. I was upset because Carolina lost this game. Denver didn't beat us. We lost it. And that's why I can understand how upset Cam was following this game. It's not like Denver played fantastic and outplayed the Panthers. Yes, their defensive line was dominant, but this game was lost because of Carolina mistakes. Tripp, you mentioned earlier when we were talking before the show that the penalties were something that killed the Carolina Panthers. Do you feel that way? Am I going too far in saying the Panthers lost this game?
I'm done. No. No, absolutely not. Let's give Denver's defense some credit. The pass rush we knew would be a problem coming in. It could pose a problem. It was great. But make no mistake, we beat the crap out of ourselves. Every time we got a big play, every time we got in midfield and the offense got moving, it was 2 false start penalties, personal foul penalty. Let's make it 3rd and 20 on us. Every time we got in a short yardage situation, which we've won all year, we kicked ourselves in the butt, and next thing was hitting Cam, fumble. I don't know. It's frustrating. Penalties definitely played a huge factor. Our discipline was terrible in this game. Something you don't typically see from Ron Rivera's team, by the way.
Joey, fumbles, drop passes, flags, special teams errors, a missed field goal, and really a lethargic-looking team at times. Mm-hmm. What happened to the Carolina Panthers, and how did they come out like this?
Well, I really think that part of the problem was the 2-week layoff. I think if this game is played the Sunday right after the NFC Championship, the momentum that Carolina was carrying with them and going into the following week, it would have been a blowout. Wouldn't have even been close. Carolina by 30. But with the extra week off, all the hype and hoopla, the pomp, the circumstance, all that goes with going to a Super Bowl got in the way of what they were there to do. And I think, we're a young team. And I think some of that youthful exuberance, all the media, all the, the fact that we were favorites, that's a position we weren't used to. All that stuff kind of worked as one big confluence of things to, cause us to lose this game. In addition to 7 sacks, 4 turnovers, 12 penalties, you know what I mean? Everything was working against us, and it showed when the bright lights went on and when it was game time. We weren't ready. We didn't have our game face.
See, I feel like, I don't know if I want to say that we weren't ready. I'm not ready. I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. I don't think it was coaching. I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think that Carolina, they did exactly what they had not done the whole season, and that is penalties and turnovers.
Right.
We did not give up. We did not have. We played and I told you guys this last week and the week before. The way I see that, what made me nervous about the hoopla and all of this is that all it takes is a game where you got a bunch of flags, they kill, you get a turnover at the wrong time, and that's what happened. If you go back and watch the game, I went back and watched it today, fellas, and the Panthers they were not only in it the whole time, they were striking. They were moving the ball at times, and then every time they got a gain that was significant, a stop that was relevant, penalty, fumble. And it was never ending. And I got to say, when Tolbert fumbled for the second time after we ran, he ran up to like the 40 or something. It was a decent run, one of the few decent runs. I said that's my formula for loss. Why Tripp did we play so undisciplined?
You know, I don't know. I've been trying to figure this out, and I saw somebody put up on Twitter saying something about players were surprised by the turnout of Broncos fans at the Super Bowl, with it being like half Broncos. And I'm not buying into that. Number one, because even if half the stadium's full, they shouldn't be making enough noise. They shouldn't be. We all knew Denver was closer, so we knew there was probably going to be more fans out there. I'm not buying that. I don't know if pressure got to them. I mean, I don't know. I've been trying to figure that one out myself, but it definitely showed they were not themselves. The discipline was just, God, it was so terrible.
Okay,
false start penalties.
What about the Kotri, our veteran, Clutchery? 3 drops.
Yeah.
Had a tough game. You know, he had a drop against Seattle last year in the playoffs. That was a first down opportunity. That first one, you know, it was a catch. You got to give it to him, right. But still, it didn't come up as a catch, and they didn't give it to him, so it doesn't count. You're talking about this, guys. Every time, if you would go back and look at each one of those mistakes, if the mistake had not happened, the game would have gone significantly the other way. You're talking about a 24 gain that was taken away or not credited that then led to the Denver touchdown.
Right.
Bingo.
I mean, just right there is that all of a sudden that's not a touchdown anymore. If anything, you do the same thing. He fumbles it, and it's a field goal this time, right? The next time, I mean, Cam, he hit Philly Brown for one play where he was or maybe it was Ted Ginn, or where they were calling for the flag. That catch, that goes through. You get another one by Kotri. You get the biggest drop of the game where Cam threw a just gorgeous pass, back shoulder, down the sideline, and it just went right through. I thought he caught it at first. Like it was – I went back, Joey, and I looked at it, and I go, damn, no wonder this hurt so bad, because we didn't get beaten.
Right. We had opportunity.
Yeah,
there were some opportunities. There were some, yes, and you know, considering how poorly we played, for us to keep it as close as it was really surprising, because we played poorly. That's a testament to the talent level we have, I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tripp.
That going back to that Kotri incomplete call pass, man. I'm not saying that determines the whole outcome of the game, but I was messaging a buddy of mine, and I said, how in the world is that not a catch? And he said, it's a catch, but it doesn't determine the game. And it doesn't. But 2 plays later, that ball doesn't roll into the daggone end zone.
Yeah.
And somebody just falls on it. It's not like they picked it up and ran with it. He fell on it in a scramble. Right. And that changes the game. That changes the play call for the defense, too. You put them in third down near the goal line, a defense is going to blitz and try to get that strip sack. I mean, it's common sense. That ball is closer to midfield. Our play call is different. Theirs is going to be different. And even if he fumbles, it's like you said, they had 13 possessions, Denver did, on offense. 8 of those were 3 and outs by our defense. Our defense dominated their offense all night until we gave the ball on the 2-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I think at all of that, even if you see what happened with Cam, at that point, the kind of defeat did set in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Joey, now we have to talk about Cam Newton. After the game, you get old Cam back. Pouty Cam shows up to the press conference, does his time, and you know what? To give him some credit in this before, because people have bashed him plenty, is he did his obligated time. He was disappointed, clearly. I mean, devastated, clearly. But he did credit the Denver team for beating them, and that they just didn't do what it took to win. Joey, is this what where do you stand on Cam Newton's reaction to the Super Bowl?
Well, first of all, I'm not one to overreact in any situation, pretty much. If you're getting an overreaction from me, then something has to be egregiously erroneous. I look at it.
Erroneous or egregious?
It's egregiously erroneous.
Okay. Like eggs erroneous.
Double whammy.
I really, first of all, I want to say that I respect Cam Newton as a player and as a person. But when you get to the NFL level, after some time, like he's been in a while, there has to be a certain level of professionalism and a certain level of maturity that you show. I think he showed both by showing up and by doing his time. Now, his attitude sucked while he was there. You could tell he was angry, but he's a person that has a hard time losing. I mean, like an extra hard time losing. Doesn't take losing well, but he shouldn't, because he's so. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. He doesn't like losing. I blame the NFL. Is where I place the blame on this, because the NFL should have known to have 2 separate venues or 2 separate time allowances for each team, instead of putting the 2 teams together where Cam Newton is answering questions and has to hear this other conversation going on where they're talking about how this is the greatest moment of their life, how all their dreams have come true, and meanwhile he's answering all these lost questions. Why did you lose? Why didn't you play your best? You were off today, and it just got aggravating. Poor job, NFL. I'm icing them up later for this, but poor job to the NFL.
Tripp, how do you feel about Cam Newton's post-game presser?
First of all, I want to say this. Cam has always said, and when he's gotten criticized for this, he admits he is a terrible loser. And, I mean, it's like he said in his conference, you show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser. It doesn't matter. You're still losing. He takes it differently, but he's being himself doing it. And also, everybody seems not, but Panther fans, of course, don't want to talk about him going out there and Peyton Manning's comments on Newton post-game when he was greeting the Broncos saying, hey, hell of a game, Peyton. You're one of the greatest. It was a great battle, yada, yada, and all this humbleness and niceness that he talked about. Nobody wants to talk about that. And then he gets up there, and no, he doesn't have the best attitude. And I'm completely fine with that, but he is up there. And I actually went back. I watched it once when it originally aired because I left and didn't watch anything live. But I went back and watched it after all the scrutiny happened, and I watched it again before the show tonight. And Cam answered the questions. Now, they were short, but he answered the questions, and the biggest thing he said the whole interview was, we got outplayed. We got outplayed. We got outplayed.
Where he... And why am I getting big echo all of a sudden? Can you hear it?
Yes.
A little bit.
All right. Hopefully, I think it went away. Sort of strange.
You're good.
Okay. So the first thing when I saw it on Twitter, because I couldn't see it. Like, I don't know I think I may have just cut it off when the game was over. And I didn't see it, and I was watching Twitter. I was actually already writing a story about everything, and I was, I guess, saddened that Cam Newton didn't handle it like flawlessly, so where nobody could ever say anything. Mm-hmm. But I watched it. I heard the Broncos, going crazy in the background. I thought about the gravity of the situation. And you know what? I got Cam's back on this, and I'm, I think at first I felt like this is, for me, the criticism from me at Cam was going to be because now I got to defend Cam more.
Right.
But you know what? Cam played a fantastic game, and when I say fantastic, Cam was the only person on that offense outside of maybe Philly Brown that was really trying to game it up. He could have tossed his people under the bus. He could have I think this is that if you could not look at Cam's body language, it would be fine. Right. It's because he's a giant, and he's like, because he's a giant, he's a mopey giant, that it makes it worse. And you know what? Cam was devastated. And let me tell you that I'm fine with that because I was damn devastated. And I think Cam has been great, but you know what? Screw him. You're sad, you're upset, your teammates in many cases let you down. In several cases, they let you down. You carried that team that night outside of the defense. On offense, was he frustrated? Sure. Was he devastated? Yes. And hopefully that shows that he understood the gravity of the moment.
Yeah. Right. And I want to bring up something else. You know, Marshawn Lynch pulled the same stunt a few years ago, and all he wanted to say was, I'm just here so I don't get fined. And everybody laughed it off like it was no big deal, and he got endorsements over this. Yeah. Cam goes up there with a bad attitude. I mean, he had an attitude because it wasn't an attitude, a bad attitude. It was an attitude of, I'm disappointed in the way we played. And he answered the questions, and he wasn't talking about himself. He wasn't criticizing teammates. He said, I threw errant passes. We didn't make blocks, but we got outplayed. That's all he said. He was practically saying we got our ass kicked and giving the Broncos some kind of credit. Yeah. But after rewatching it tonight, I'm just kind of blown away. The only part that kills everybody, I think, is him getting up and leaving. And, you know, you would like to see him handle it better, but Cam was himself, and that's what I like about Cam. He is real. He's not going to sit there and
right.
And this is all bullshit. If you think that Muggs can get to this moment that we have cried and clawed for, and we applaud dudes when they're crying on the sidelines and they believe in this moment and how special the Super Bowl is, and then to come out and say, oh, well, Denver did a good job. We just didn't have a good day. Like these real canned answers, screw that. The Panthers beat themselves, and Cam was really I think he was well aware of it. I think he wanted to say this. We dropped passes that he did say this a little bit, but he also said that he made mistakes, and he did make some, and he fumbled the ball in a time where, though, he didn't have any time. Here's Dave Gettleman, though, on it, talking about Cam after how he dealt with losing.
Well, you know, it's really kind of funny. You know, David, when we look at players, again, and you guys have figured out, I am very methodical about the way I operate. I'm very intentional about what I do and what I say. You know, one of the things we talk about in the draft meeting is I don't want guys that want to win, because really, who doesn't? You know, do you want to lose, David? No. Nobody wants to. Everybody wants to win. I want players that hate to lose. Plain and simple. I want players that I know when the game is over, they are crawling into the locker room and they need help getting their gear off, and it's going to take them time to get in the shower and get cleaned up. I want the buses to be late to the airport if we're traveling. We all handle defeat differently, and it's hard. And it's hard.
And you know what makes it easier?
Everybody reacts differently.
That accent is hard. And it's hard. All right, I got a question from Twitter. Let me pull it up real quick. At KB13's Revenge, KB13, you can find his handle, KB13 Predator. He said this. He said, what do you guys think of this? Is this true? The Koch Botch Super Bowl replay assistant's wife is a huge Broncos fan. Turns out that one of the assistants in the Super Bowl replay booth, his wife, he's from Denver. His wife is a Denver fan, and some people are making connections between that and the Kotchery call. Joey, what do you think about that?
I think that's just conspiracy theories. NFL is huge, man. The NFL is gigantic, and that you're going to run into that kind of thing where an official or somebody who's related to an official is going to be a fan of a team. And I think the Kotchery reception was worthy of a challenge, but when you look at it in slow motion, it was a catch. However, this guy's opinion of what is a catch and what isn't is different. I don't think the fact that his wife is a Broncos fan had anything to do with it. People can extrapolate themselves from that kind of a thing and do a job that they're paid to do without considering your spouse's feelings.
Our boy Shaked, I think this is a good point. Our boy Shaked on YouTube said this, is that Panthers' problem is that they played too slow. This is something that I believe I saw too, is that it seems like our offense always did better when it was trying to be upbeat.
Up-tempo.
Up-tempo. And this almost like the game plan was intentionally slow. One thing, though, is that, who called the game? It wasn't Boomer Size. Who was it? It was Phil Simms. Yeah, he said, Cam, can he keep up this pace? Because he was running the ball, throwing the ball under duress. He was doing everything. Do you think that had something to do with it? Why did this team seem to be moving a little slower, Tripp?
Well, initially the running game was not there. I mean, that's one reason. And then early on, Cam's passes were errant. I mean, we all saw it. He was missing wide open targets. Just throwing them bad. You can blame that on nerves, and you settle down. And it would have made more. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it. I've got it recorded, and I wanted to today. I didn't get time. But what I remember, you would think, if you speed it up, that keeps defense on his heels. It might wear him down some more. But early on in that first and even the second quarter, we were getting nothing going offensively. I mean, nothing. Yeah. And when we did, we killed ourselves. So it's not
that was the problem. It was we were actually making plays, and then they would just call them back.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we never had a chance to get it up tempo. The penalties killed us again.
Yeah, that might be a lot of it. That is a lot of it. You're exactly right. Joey, I think one thing that Tripp mentioned too, the difficulty in establishing a run game, I don't think this was all their defensive line. I think two things, and I'm not going to criticize Mike Schuler, because if these guys would have executed, this would have been a different game. But mistakes like that, you can't game plan for turnovers. You can't game plan for these things. But for me, Joey, how did you feel the Jonathan Stewart injury impacted? It was on like the third play of the game.
Yeah, it was real early.
I mean, the first drive.
It definitely made an impact in the game. When you have such a tough runner like he is, to get a foot or ankle banged up really changes your running style. You can't be the pile driver that you are, because your base is not there. So I think it had a big impact.
Did anybody else, when that happened, just look, and he didn't come right back in the next play or two, just kind of think to themselves, please tell me this isn't about to happen.
I cringed.
Going downhill from
physically cringed.
No, I knew it was all going to happen. I knew this was going to happen when they did not activate Cap for the game, Cameron Artis-Payne. And that right there just signaled, because we saw what happened when he wasn't in there, is that Tolbert and Whitaker just couldn't get it done in the same manner. And Jonathan Stewart, that hard running style, something to be appreciated. All right, this week, guys, we've got our special guest joining us, Louie Tee, back-to-back weeks on the show from the Louie Tee Network. He called a victory for the Broncos.
He did.
You were right, but it feels so wrong, Louie.
My intentions were never to make you guys unhappy, man. I felt for you guys, I really did, and I know you saw that I tweeted out right at the end of the game as it was coming to its conclusion. Congratulations to you guys. This was a hell of a season. I mean,
Yeah.
if I would have had you make a deal with the devil before the season and told you that you would have been in the Super Bowl. Now, you didn't know if you were going to win or lose. That the fact that you were in the Super Bowl, now, you were going to have to pay for it later, but you were going to get to the Super Bowl, you would have taken that deal. And the fact that you guys were in the Super Bowl and had the magical ride that you had this season was remarkable. My question at the end
was on his end
is that, can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. The question I had at the end, and I actually said this on my show, was this a magical season, or was this the start of a magical run for the Carolina Panthers? And I think that's the question that I want to see them answer next season.
Yeah, to me, the answer is both.
Yeah.
Right? Is that this was a magical season, and this is the start to something magical. I guess the question is, how do the Panthers respond? Can you replicate something to this degree? I don't know if you can replicate this season.
No. Every season is its own entity. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't see
15-1, I mean, it's amazing. And that's where the heartbreak comes in, is that it was so special.
I don't think 15-1 is replicable. I think 13-3, 12-4. I think those are realistic numbers. 14-2, 15-1 is so hard to do. There's only been like a handful of teams that have ever done it.
Right.
Yeah,
tough.
This team is built so well. We've got our core unit.
I think that's because the playing field has been so leveled. With the salary cap, teams are competitive, but I really believe that we have a foundation laid here in Carolina. We have a foundation laid to become one of those teams that's talked about every year, going to the playoffs and having a chance to win the Super Bowl. Yeah. Because we're young, we've got a really good nucleus, and we can build on that. Every season we can add a piece here or there and continue to improve and continue to draft well. And I think in 3 or 4 years, the odds makers, like now, every year it's New England and Pittsburgh. Those are your odds-on favorites to go to the Super Bowl. Carolina will be up there.
Actually, in the newest rankings, Carolina is the number one favorite to go back to the Super Bowl next season. But something else real quick, Panthers have never had back-to-back franchise-winning seasons in franchise history. Never done it. And I've actually got a piece coming back out on Cat Chronicles about this maybe tomorrow. But it will be very interesting to see how a team responds after a season like this and a loss the way they just had, how they respond next season. They come back, get back to the playoffs with a winning season, it'll be, number one, that'll be a big check mark off the list and a momentum booster, period. They can come back and keep fighting the way they did, get KB back. This team is built for years to come with the core, and we haven't even got to the draft yet, and that's where we do our most damage. And we got salary cap now. So it'll be really interesting to see next year.
Yeah, we've got money to spend, and I think here's the thing, is we have a franchise quarterback, and you can tell me that you didn't like Cam Newton's press conference. You can tell me that his numbers didn't reflect all that much, but I can tell you one thing, is that guy was the MVP of the league, and he was the only really thing going for that Carolina Panthers offense in this Super Bowl. Sure, he made some mistakes, but he made more plays than he made mistakes. We've got a franchise quarterback. We've got the best linebacker in the league in Luke Kuechly. We've got maybe what arguably could be the best defensive tackle combination in Star Lotulelei and K'Wan Short. We're built strong from the middle, and and we got these guys locked up for a while. So, we've got 5 years to make something happen with Luke Kuechly and Cam Newton, and I think we can do it.
Yep. I see you signing KK and tagging Josh Norman in the offseason.
How do you think, Louie, what do you think? Is this the beginning of something special?
Yeah, I like the way this team is built. I've given Dave Gettleman a lot of flack for some of the moves he's made, but he's done and he's an old school general manager, and what old school general managers love to do is build from within. I think he's done a really good job of doing that with this football team, and I think there's still some pieces that need to be brought in and some holes to be filled on this roster. But you see the formings and the makings of a team that could really do damage year in, year out. The question is, it's so hard to get back to this point. Every year is different.
Absolutely.
You don't know what circumstances you're going to face. Anything could happen. A guy could go down in camp. I mean, it's just so hard to do it year in and year out. You want to be able to take advantage of the opportunity when it presents itself. So, I mean, looking at this team, if they stay relatively healthy, I don't see why they cannot get back to the postseason. And then once you get back to the postseason, all bets are off. It's anybody's ball game. And I think this Panthers team is built to do exactly that.
You're right, is that the reason this stings and this hurts so bad, and it's hard to even, like, yes, we want to say this was a special season. Yes, 15-1 doesn't happen often. Is that no matter what, and I think this is why Cam Newton was like the way he was, is that even at just 26, he understands that these opportunities can't be squandered. Great players, great teams. If you miss these opportunities, you're not a great team. You're not a great player. And that's the defining thing, and that's why it crushed him so much. Louie, let me ask you this. Do you think this defeat makes Cam stronger or destroys him?
Oh, it definitely makes him stronger because he had never experienced what a lot of people don't realize. He never experienced this before. The whole Super Bowl hoopla, having to go through the media and talk to them each and every single day. You know, when you're a quarterback, your responsibility is to talk to the media once a week during the season, to have to go up there. I mean, guys were asking him, why does he have on socks with slippers? I mean, come on, what are we talking about?
Exactly.
I mean, it was a different process that he had to go through, and I think what you saw from him was a guy that was in total shock. He did not expect the outcome that he got in this game. They were so confident going into this football game, and rightfully so. And to see the way that the game unfolded, I think he was so disappointed in the way they played because I've been listening the entire time, and I want to say that you guys are awesome. And I love the funeral analogy. It was awesome, and I thought Joe took it to another level with the whole being murdered. I mean, that was awesome. And I just feel like so many things transpired in this football game that saw it happen the way that it did. And I think you guys hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I'm still a firm believer that Denver Broncos defense, and you know how I feel about them, they're so good, and elite defenses get it done this time of the year. But I felt like the Panthers seemed like a team that early in this ball game, the moment was too big for them.
Yeah.
You got dropped passes. You got guys not knowing if the returner called a fair catch. You got an early fumble by Tolbert.
It was just sloppy.
It was very sloppy. The field was sloppy. Everything was sloppy. And I just thought that the Panthers, it almost took them a half of football to realize that it's
There's
just
a
another
Super Bowl
game.
going on.
It's just another game. It's the Super Bowl, but it's just another game. Let's not put too much pressure on ourselves to go out here and play. And that was one of the things that I had said was going to be the keys. I had a bunch of keys to the game, but I said just be who you are. You don't have to go out here and be something that you're not. Like the play that exemplified that for me was the triple pass that they were going to try.
Exactly.
What a poorly conceived
You're
idea.
at midfield. You're in great field position. What are you doing? That's not who you are.
Exactly.
Right.
I looked directly beside me, and I said, "Why are you trying to get cute now?" I said something else to somebody else earlier in the week. I said, "I just hope they don't try to pull out nothing stupid, and they just stick to what's worked all season." Right. And that's what Rivera had always been coaching them all week. Stick to who you are. Stick to what you're doing. And they didn't do that early on. They did it in the second half. About in it was too late. They lost their momentum. They were still kicking themselves in the foot here and there. Yep. And he brought up a good point with this weekend media stuff. Look, that just added to Cam Newton's fuel. I'm sure when he got done with his game and still had his game pants on, by the way, walks out there and is like, I faced this all week. I've got to now listen to this crap again. A reporter asked Ryan Khalil, is this a must-win game? Is this a must-win game?
Oh, my God.
Are you kidding me?
No, we'll come back and win next week.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Louie, I want to get Louie's thoughts on this. It's funny that you say come back again next week. If this game gets played the Sunday after the Panthers annihilated the Cardinals, do you think the outcome is the same?
I do. I think you got to look at it from both sides of the spectrum. Or ends of the spectrum. If this game is played a week after, you don't have TD in this game because he's not going to be ready to rock and roll with that broken arm. So you got to look at it from both sides. And I think the Panthers had a lot of momentum, but this Broncos defense, they were going to be good last Sunday, the week before that, the next week after that. I mean, this Broncos defense is legit. And I just think the Panthers just made a bunch of mistakes. This moment was really big. And I don't think they realized just how big the moment really was. And they came out a little tight, and I thought that Jericho Cotchery could be an X factor in this game. Well, he dropped the football. And
Three.
Yeah. And I thought he caught that pass, by the way, but still, catch it the first time. Don't allow the officials to have any impact on this game. Catch the football the first time. And who knows what happens because Cam hit him in stride. He's splitting the safety. I'm not saying he's scoring. Jericho Cotchery is not fast.
Right.
Huge game into Broncos territory changes the entire complexion of the game. So, I mean, there were so many things that could have went wrong that did go wrong for the Panthers in this football.
Let me get your thoughts on this, and then I'm done interrogating you. I wanted to ask what you thought, or you mentioned that the moment's too big. Is it because we're so young? Is it because it's such a young team?
Yeah, I put a lot on the fact that this is a young team with a lot of guys that hadn't been here before.
Right.
And I look. Let's take a guy like Josh Norman. He enjoyed the whole Super Bowl hoopla, the whole Lucha Libre mask, and really kind of chumming it up. He loved it. He embraced it. That's his thing, okay? This guy had a chance to impact this game with 2 interceptions. Yeah. And he dropped both of them. The second one was a backbreaker. It's 16-10, and I'm actually cussing Peyton Manning out because I said of all the places on 3rd and 9 that you're gonna go late in the ball game, 6 minutes left, you're gonna go to Josh Norman's side? Are you crazy or just stupid? And so he throws it right to Norman. It's a tough play, but we've seen him make. I just thought about the New Orleans Saints pick early in the season at home to secure the victory. I'm like, you've caught that same ball before, buddy. I know you can
twice, because he did it in Jacksonville, too.
Exactly. He's made plays all season, and to see him not make a play, if he gets that interception, there's no doubt in my mind they're at the 30-yard line in Denver Broncos territory. You're going to score a touchdown. You're going to win this football game 17-16. But instead, and it was that kind of night for the Panthers. They just couldn't make the plays when they were there in front of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to say that it's just us being young and the moment being too big, because I feel like some of our younger players really were playing really pretty good, pretty solid football. You look at Coney Ely with an insane game on just 23 snaps.
He would have been the MVP.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think so too.
You've got Cam Newton, who he kept this alive out of anything on offense. Even our best receiver, you would say, was Philly Brown, undrafted free agent. Until he went down with a concussion, he was giving people problems. To me, and Legacy Lines, Lynn on Twitter says this, is that, look, Mike Remmers got worked. He got beat. He got beat like a damn drum, and
we've been worried about that.
You know
I was
what?
worried.
Also, an undrafted rookie free agent. Well, he's not a rookie anymore, but he was an undrafted guy that bounced around the league. 2 years in a row, he plays 12 games, 12 solid games, and then runs out of gas at the end of the season. I think we got exposed. And I think that some of the things that showed up, and this is what made me nervous before the Super Bowl, was when people kept saying we had more talent top to bottom on our roster. And outside of our core players, I don't know if that's the truth.
I never subscribed to that. I just never did. You know what I mean? And
I mean, Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas alone make their receiver core better.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially without you guys having KB. But, I mean, you guys had injuries in this game as well. I know Andrew Norwell went down. I don't even remember if he ever came back in the ball game. Jonathan Stewart injured early on the second possession of the game. Philly Brown leads with a concussion. I mean, you guys had injuries in this game. But I've said this all postseason long, and I've been trying to explain to people because a lot of people were coming down on me with my prediction of the Broncos winning. And I said, look, the Panthers' offensive line is good. It's not great. And the reason they've been able to hide them and mask the deficiencies on that line is because they run the football so well. The play-action fake has given Cam the time to drive the football down the field because you got to respect the run. They've run it the best of any team in the league. And because of that running game, and the most, exactly. And so because of that, you can't pin your ears back. You can't come after Cam. And you stayed in third and manageable. Another one of my points was stay out of third and long because if they know you have to pass, they're going to turn the dogs loose. And you don't want that because your offensive line isn't good enough to stop them from hitting home. So.
And when we got to third,
let me ask you this: Is Louie a little staticky on your side, Joe?
A little bit. Yeah, he is.
Okay.
A little.
Hey, Louie, can you try jumping out and then jumping right back in?
Sure.
All right. I wanna when Louie comes back, we'll ask him this, Joey, and we'll let you pick up on it, or we'll let you start. Tripp, actually, I'll let you start since Joey led the question before. I want to talk about the way Ron Rivera has handled this loss. He's been remarkably upbeat. Light. He's kept it light, I feel like. Does this surprise you?
He's always kept everything light. I mean, has his tone ever really changed since
I don't know,
been
man.
here?
I feel like after a loss, Ron Rivera is kind of like, it's one play. It's execution. He didn't talk about penalties. He didn't talk about anything. He just said, basically, we're looking towards next year.
Well, I mean, from a coach's aspect, that's his job. I mean, at this point, he can sit here and talk about it all day, but it's done. Go ahead and start focusing on it. Like I noticed today in his presser, he said somebody asked him, "How long will it take to get over this?" And he said, "Can't you tell I'm already over it? We're focusing on 2016. We're going to go look at guys tonight with Gettleman." By the way, I think that speaks a lot for. I couldn't imagine losing something like that and then turning right around and having the mindset to turn right around and say, "Hey, let's go make this better next year, better than it was this past season."
I know. We're having a damn funeral out over here.
We're having a therapy session.
Louie, I was asking, first of all, let me get a check from you.
Check. 1 2
Yeah,
1 2.
you are crystal clear. We were asking Tripp while you were gone. Ron Rivera has handled this for a guy that's always been kind of very, I would say, even keel in a way, though, when we're celebrating, he's always talking about improving, about how we made mistakes, how he's never too high. He's never too low either, which has been great for a lot of emotional guys on this team. He has been very upbeat since this loss. He has not been critical of his players and his play. Does this surprise you in the way that he is handling it in this manner?
No, not at all. I mean, at this point, I mean, what does being critical of your players do?
Right.
At this point, you want to reflect on the season that you had. I mean, it was a great run, and he understands. He's been in this league for over 2 decades. We're probably going on 3 decades because he won with the '85 Bears. So he's been in this league over 3 decades. He understands that it's so hard to do this. I mean, he was on one of the greatest defenses, if not the greatest defense of all time, and they only went to 1 Super Bowl. And that core group was together for
Didn't he lose it?
4. Yeah.
He did. He lost with the Bears.
Yeah.
Exactly. So he's been on both sides.
He understands how tough this is. And he understands that nothing's guaranteed, nothing's promised to this team. They're not going to just show up and be back here next year. So in order to put our players and our organization back in this position again, we got to hit the ground running, and we can't focus on what happened yesterday. The past is the past. It's frustrating. We're disappointed. We wish we would have won the game. We wish we would have executed better. Wish we would have done some things better, and maybe not called some of the plays we called, or maybe been more aggressive, or maybe pushed the tempo more. We wish we would have done a bunch of things, but at the end of the day, we didn't. We lost the ball game. Let's move on and see if we can improve this team and get back here again next year.
Joey, I think this shows why Rivera could potentially is a great head coach, and while I'm so excited about him. Look, everybody is being hard on Cam Newton. Everybody is dissing the Panthers this week and talking about. I mean, even the Broncos are laying it on thick.
Wait, Philip, did you catch him?
Don't worry, he's coming up. That boy's getting some ice later on tonight. I mean, everybody is hard on these guys, and nobody is probably harder on them than themselves, Joey. For me, I think this shows us 2 things. Ron Rivera is a player's coach, and this is the experience of being a player. And one thing I see change about him is that he's tough on these guys even after wins. He's very even keel. He's really tough on them when we lose. But at this point, he's always talking about how it's working towards the goal of the Super Bowl. Well, now we lost the Super Bowl. So really, there's no point in being hard on a team for losing. Now it's about building this team up. Joey, what do you think this says about Ron Rivera as a head coach in the way he's handling this?
Well, I think that's what you want in a head coach. I think he has been sort of a stabilizing factor throughout the entire season. He tried to never let them get too high, and at the same time never let them get too low, just kind of keep them on an even keel. And I think he's been successful with that. I like the fact that, when the clock hits 0-0 in the Super Bowl, that season's over. All right, let's get started on the next one. You know what I mean? I like that attitude. That's what I don't know if you call. I think we lost communication earlier when I was talking about building a foundation and what I think this Panthers organization is doing. Did you get to hear any of that?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I think what we're seeing here is the beginning of a Panther, I don't want to say dynasty because those can be short-lived too. I think we're beginning to see a redirection of this Panthers organization with the solid nucleus of players that we have now, and the addition through the draft, through free agency. Every year, you're going to see this team be competitive for the division crown. Every year, you're going to see this team be competitive for the conference championship. We are going to become those teams that at the beginning of the season, when the odds makers are giving out odds, now it's always like New England and Pittsburgh. Those are your favorites to win the Super Bowl every year. Well, Carolina is going to be at that level within the next couple of years. We are going to be a team that is mentioned as always being in the hunt for a championship because of this base, this foundation that we laid this year.
And that's a good.
I really believe that. I really believe you're going to see a dramatic turnaround in this franchise, and we are going to be one of the premier franchises, competitively speaking, always in the hunt. And that's what I'm excited about. That's what you see by these coaches saying, okay, we're going to look at film tonight. You know, they're dedicated. They want to put their stamp on this and see it carried beyond just their tenures.
Right, and I've talked about this with people before, and bravo to the Carolina Panthers organization for sticking with a head coach in a league where now, if you don't win the first season, your rookie quarterback doesn't do well the first 2 seasons, they're hosed. Because, now granted, Cam Newton came into the league, was breaking all kinds of records and stuff, but he still wasn't necessarily winning. Ron Rivera still had a losing record, but they stuck with the program they built. When everybody was asking for Rivera's head, Jerry Richardson called him in, talked about it. They said, look, we're going to keep you around for another year. Next year we went 12-4, had the longest winning streak in franchise history. In a league where everybody's win now, Carolina Panthers have stuck to their guns and are building, just like Louie said, from the inside, and they're keeping that going, and it's making a huge impact right now, and you can see it year in and year out. This year was obviously the catalyst of it, even though we lost the Super Bowl, but you don't go 17-2 with bad chemistry in the locker room. Wow. They've ousted 2 of the household names and said, you're not going to like it now, but you wait till you see what we did with it. And now look at it. You think anybody's missing Steve Smith, D'Angelo Williams right now?
No. Right. And I think that's what they're doing. They're taking the long view. Instead of the win now short view, they're taking the long view. In 10 years, we still want to be good. We still want to be competitive. We still want to be vying for the NFC South crown so we can get to the playoffs and have a chance at the conference championship. That's the approach.
He came here. That was exactly what he said. He said, look, I'm not looking at now. I have to look at the next few years down the road and build what we want to become, not try to force something that we want to be now. And like Louie said, we're still missing pieces. We need secondary help outside of Josh Norman because we have Roman Harper. Trey Boston's quick. He has potential. But then you got Peanut Tillman, who's not even guaranteed to play next year. And then we're not going to be I wouldn't think Robert McClain is going to stick around here and be our starter.
You know what? I want to give props to Robert McClain in this game. Mm-hmm. Robert McClain played well in this Super Bowl.
Rightfully so, Tony. He did play well.
Had a pick.
I think one thing that Louie pointed out, too, is when he called Dave Gettleman an old school manager. Today, Louie, I listened to Dave Gettleman's press conference, and he said this, is that he says the same thing every year, first of all. But he's really honest, and he said, we use free agency to set up our draft. But then he let something slip, and he said restricted free agency. So, like, he's not even interested in unrestricted free agents. Like, nope, they're going to break the bank. Like, I'm just looking at dudes right now that we're working on our team that we want to keep and talent at home and groom. Maybe add some smaller parts. I don't know. Louie, do you think you could ever see Dave Gettleman adding a big-time name from the outside? I don't think so.
I owe him an apology. I already apologized to Ron Rivera because, much like you guys were talking about, I was one of those people that was banging the table, get rid of Ron Rivera, and they couldn't have made a better move. Sometimes the best moves are the ones you don't make. Yep. And I think the Panthers hit a home run by holding on to Ron Rivera. And I'm a strong advocate for retaining coaches because, just like you guys have mentioned, you need continuity. You can't build that overnight. That happens over time. And I think Jonathan has hit it on the head several times with, the continuity thing. That's why this team is so good. I laugh and I make fun of Dave Gettleman for going out and getting Ted Ginn Jr. and bringing in Michael Orr. And I'm like, he said he wasn't shopping at the dollar store this year. And
he went to a yard sale.
Yeah, he went to a yard sale and he picked up a couple of cheap items. And I took him to task, man. I was upset because I've watched this Panthers team grow. That year when you guys won like 10 games straight, won the division, and the 49ers got you in the divisional round, I'm excited about because I love young football teams. I love watching young football teams grow right before my very eyes. And I'm watching this team. I'm like, okay, let's see what Gettleman's going to do. And he went and he did nothing. And then he got rid of the entire wide receiving core and went out and got Ted Ginn Jr. And I'm like, what? What are you doing? And so to see this team do what they did and the way they were able to kind of mask some of the deficiencies, I don't think Dave Gettleman, and like I said, he's an old-school general manager, I don't think he's going to use free agency as a vehicle to drive this team. And I think that's the way you see a lot of teams building now is we're going to use the draft to build our team. We're going to stay young. We're not going to bring guys who aren't hungry in here who are just looking for a payday. We're going to take care of our own first and foremost. Keep those guys here because they know the program, they know what we stand for and what we're looking for, and we're going to go in and we're going to supplement our roster with, a guy here, a guy there, but it's not going to be a household name, not going to be somebody that's going to command $70 million on the open market. It's going to be that guy that gets a 4-year, $21 million deal that nobody's talking about, but he's going to be a nice cog on your football team.
You know that I don't know if Dave Gettleman would have been a good general manager in the old collective bargaining agreement because the new collective bargaining agreement is phenomenal for people that want to build from within, that want to build on draft picks because you don't have to pay, you pay the veterans more money and then the rookies don't make as much money and you get your first round pick for 5 years, you get your second round pick. The old system was not conducive to that because you had to leverage so much money on these young guys and if they didn't work out, you were crippled in two ways. You were crippled not only by the actual roster bust and the problem on the team, but then you're crippled financially. So I think the new collective bargaining, I love this type of scale. Now, I'm not a player, so I don't know how this factors in. I'm sure that these guys would love to get $50 million guaranteed before they played a snap. But I think that is like what Louie is saying, that teams are trending towards that because they can now.
Yeah, and I think they prefer it that way, to be honest, because the players don't want to see guys who aren't vested veterans getting paid. There's guys that have been in the league 5, 7, 8 years, and you get a rookie coming in and he's making 10 times as much as a guy that's been paid 6 years. That was ass backwards, and so it was great.
Look at Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford made like $50 million.
He was the one that broke. He was the one that broke the system. Him and Jamarcus Russell.
Yep. Those were the two poster childs for that. Yep.
They broke it. All right. We're getting towards the end of the show. We still got to do our ice up picks, but I want to do this. Is that we've got to talk about Aqib Talib. Aqib Talib. You know what? Screw you, Aqib Talib. I'm just going to call you Talib Kweli. The only person I know that's got a name like that is Talib Kweli, and he's a great rapper. He's one of those. Let me just say this. Is Talib Kweli, I'm guessing, is smarter than Aqib Talib. My guess.
Yes. I'll be willing to bet too.
All right, Joey, 2 personal fouls in the first 20 minutes of the game. Aqib Talib, he's the guy that gave us our favorite segment. We're going to be going into the OG, the very first segment maybe on the C3 podcast, the Ice Up segment, comes from a moment where Steve Smith told this dude to ice up when we beat New England. 2 personal fouls in the first 20 minutes. The Birdman, he looks like a combination of Chris Bosh and I'm trying to think of who else. He's a little Chris Bosh-esque to him. That bird face. Kind of looks like a dinosaur a little bit. Joey, what do you think about what he said afterwards? First, he's been picking on Cam, and then he said that the face mask penalty against Philly Brown was intentional.
That's what really bothered me was the face mask. He's a player that doesn't care, and I say that knowing he got in trouble back when he was with, I think, the Buccaneers for shooting at somebody who was his sister's boyfriend or something like that. So this isn't the first time he's ever put himself in a position like this. And
pokes eyeballs. He pokes people in the eyeball. He got suspended for that.
Yeah, this kind of behavior is dangerous, man. What if he would have done something to hurt Philly Brown in a manner that he could not recover from?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
He tried to twist his head off.
Yeah, exactly. And in such a big manner, the way he did it was so obvious in a big game when the NFL is making this huge push about player safety and looking out to make sure players are okay. Something has to be done. Purposely face masking someone is completely unacceptable.
Anything to the head or the knees just seems crazy. Anytime you mess with somebody's neck and their ability to walk, like their way to make money, that's bothersome. Tripp, what did you think about? Is this just par for course?
Yeah, definitely so. The league did announce today they're looking into a suspension on Aqib Talib for that face mask after his comments and whatnot. Yeah, it's nothing new. And, people, y'all want to talk about arrogance and stuff like this with Cam Newton.
Mm-hmm.
How in the world do you not look at a guy like Aqib Talib? I've got much respect for this Broncos defense. Aqib Talib is a hell of a football player.
He is.
How do you not look at a guy like him, walking into press conferences talking about his watch? He's like, I carry this with me wherever I go. And then he does stuff like this with his sister's boyfriend. Yeah, 80K, baby, 80K. And he purposely doesn't mind hurting other people. And like the face mask thing at the time, live in the game, I mean, it was obvious and it was dangerous looking. And I said, that's heat of the moment. I can completely see that. And then he's coming out with his comments. But Aqib Talib's the guy too. I could completely see making this up just to make himself look like raw.
Right.
I completely see that.
That's a good point. I'm going to say this, is that if it wouldn't have been against the Carolina Panther, and had we not had a problem with it, I kind of like him. And what I mean by that is that if my ass was a super successful football player, I would totally be that guy rocking those big watches and the chains and being like, look at my eyes, like this and that. So, I mean, I'm okay with that, but I don't like people trying to intentionally injure people or a problem with that. Louie, I'll ask you this on Talib Kweli is, first of all, him and Mos Def are always real good together, him and Talib Kweli.
Yeah.
But the other... They did make a good group, but do you think that this is what it takes to get Roger Goodell's Odell Beckham Jr. rule, the 2 personal fouls equals an ejection?
It may. I mean, I'm so upset with him coming out and saying he did it on purpose. I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, he's probably going to get suspended for this.
Rightfully so.
I'd hate to see a situation where 2 personal fouls get you ejected out of a game. I think this still should be subjective, but I understand where that's coming from. But, I mean, personal fouls, again, they're subjective in nature themselves. I mean, one of your guys got a penalty for, and let's say one happens in the heat of the game, like Trey Boston picked one up on a peel back block on a punt return.
Right.
And then he got another one on the taunting thing with E-Man Sand, and he would have been thrown out of the game. I mean,
right.
You want a guy getting thrown out because of that. I mean, that's garbage. So
in football, yes, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I get it in basketball, but this is a physical sport. The emotions run high. I wouldn't be a fan of that at all.
I even think the first personal foul on whatever his name. I always get it wrong, so
Aqib
now I don't even want. I don't ever want to say it now because I always say Talib Kweli.
Yeah.
But I thought the first one was kind of weak. And
No, he deserved that one. I mean, he was
because he
over
took
the
his
top.
helmet
He
off.
took his helmet
Do you think
off.
it was
Yeah.
because it was, yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you get it, and it sucks. But that sucks. Say you got two like that, and it got you ejected. That would kind of stink.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan of that, man. You know.
I like for them to, they kind of self-police, so I'm okay. I do think this is that when you start to hear, my thing is this: I didn't think it was intentional. I thought maybe a personal foul maybe have been intentional, but I didn't think that like him trying to rip his head off was. And so I think that's when it gets upsetting. But all right, we got to get to the end of the show. It's the last segment of the show. It's our ice up picks of the week. Tripp, you're first time on the show. Why don't you start us off? Did I put you on the spot? I mean, you watch it every week.
I've actually been thinking about this, and there's so many ways you could go. There's so much low-hanging fruit. I'm going to ice up everybody talking junk about Cam Newton. We should have got this from Louie's opinion on this too. But I want to ice up everybody talking about Cam Newton's press conference after the game, after going out and congratulating Peyton Manning with a smile nonetheless. If he wasn't even out there pouting, I don't know what happened. He had time to think about it in the 20 minutes between getting to the locker room and then heading straight out instead of taking a shower like he normally does. But after watching it back again, he was upset. The guy hates losing. He understands it. And people this season have been waiting since September for Cam Newton to fail on a stage like this. Because they've had no other week to do it. And now everybody is unleashing it, and he gave them the perfect fuel for it. And while you would like to see him handle it better, the thing we love about Cam Newton is he is real. He is himself. He's not going to go out here and give you this fake demeanor every week in and week out. And it's not like he was up there bashing the other team. He criticized himself. He criticized his own team. He said we got outplayed by the Denver Broncos. So to all you people out there that are so upset with this, and have been holding on for something for Cam to fail on, you can ice up. I just don't understand it. And I'd love to hear Louie's take on it. Like I said, you like to see him handle a little bit better. If he doesn't walk out on his press conference, I don't think it's made as a big deal. But it's the same questions over and over. We talked about this earlier with the Super Bowl week. It's the same thing over and over. I just didn't think it was that bad. We talked about the Marshawn Lynch reference. He sits there and says, I'm just here so I don't get fined. And the man's getting endorsements from everybody, including the NFL. And it's a slap to the face of the NFL shield. But nothing happens to him, and everybody thinks it's comical. So, I don't know. That's just me, though.
Double standard. Ice up.
Yeah.
Ice up. That's right. Joey, I know you got to get out of here. Why don't you deliver your ice up pick so you can go?
I sort of mentioned mine earlier. I still am icing up the NFL because it was such a poorly conceived idea to have the winners and the losers of the Super Bowl interviewed in the same room. You know what I mean? It's such a poorly. It was a total setup. They set up whoever. Somebody was going to get pissed because, of this going on, and it just so happened to be Cam showed that he was frustrated with by getting up and walking out. And that was just a bad idea by the NFL. They make so much money that they couldn't get another location for the winning team, or at least let teams go up at different times. They have to do it together.
Yeah. Joe, here's a quote from... Here's a quote from Chris Harris on that, Joey. I have no idea why they had us in the same room or anywhere else close to us. So I would have been mad too if I was Cam. To be able to hear your opponent right behind you talking, nobody wants to hear that after you lose a Super Bowl.
Exactly, and that sums it up right there. It was really just a terrible job in judgment by the NFL. So Roger Goodell and the rest of your cronies, I say to you, in a very spiteful way, I said so.
Well done, Joe. Thanks. I know you got to run, Joe, so if you got to dip out, go ahead. Louie,
It was great seeing you, brother. It was great seeing you, Louie. Best wishes to you, and I look forward to next season getting you on the show more.
Absolutely, man. It's been a pleasure, man. Take care.
All right,
before we get to the final two Ice Up picks, I've got to break this to you guys. I ran across a advertisement for an ebook that was published on Amazon.
I know where you're going with.
It is Dabbing with Cam.
Yeah.
A Cam Newton erotic
Cam.
All right, so I, of course, downloaded the sample for tonight, and I would like to read. This is a passage from this. And first of all, there's so many lewd passages that I wanted to read, but I got to skip to the part where it gets Cam. So supposedly Cam takes this girl back to set up the scene. He takes her back into the training room where he's getting therapy. They go into the hot tub together, and it says he stood up and he took my hand. Took my hand in his hand. Ready? He asked. Ready for what? Question. You know. He thrust our joined hands towards the ceiling and leaned into his other elbow. What's that? Don't tell me you don't know. Don't know what? Come on, girl. Dab. All right, so to start this, then he sprays her with champagne, right? As I was drinking champagne and laughing and dabbing with Cam, I felt so free like a bird, or should I say a panther in the jungle. And like a panther, I now decided it was time to hunt, or to be hunted. Now, I got to jump to this next part because it's great. She says this, swear. I slid my hand down his chest and let out a moan. You feel so good, I said. He was laying his head back, his mouth open. My hand continued down the goal line. Before I even got close, I could feel his goal post. At that moment, I knew why he was really referred to as the Man of Steel. Caroline Blue, well done. Why didn't I think of this? Somebody go download her book. 99 cents. Go buy the erotic novel.
She had done that with Gronk, so that's why she did it with Cam too. She had a lot of success with the one she did about Gronk. So
yeah, I saw him reading it on the late night show. So I wanted to give a shout out to that. Louie Tee, you got a Ice Up pick for us this week?
Sure. I mean, it's so nice. I got to do it twice, man. I too have one for the NFL for the same reason that Joe had one. I mean, that's garbage. And the little rinky-dink setup they had with a little, actual banner. It's literally like a banner separating the two. Literally, they were back-to-back answering questions. And, come on, man. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You telling me that's the best you can do?
Exactly.
A brand-new stadium, essentially. Probably the newest stadium in the NFL is Levi Stadium. And you telling me that's the best you can do? Come on, man. Be for real. Ice up, NFL. Get it together. And I got to save my biggest ice up for those weak-ass commercials, man. Look, these commercials are getting out of hand now. I mean, they were terrible this year. And I had seen half of them on YouTube before the Super Bowl even happened. I had already seen the Drake one. I had already seen the Talking Orange one. I had seen like 5 of them or 6 of them before the Super Bowl. They're getting worse and worse, and they cost more and more every year. Ice up, commercial makers.
Yeah, why did they show them early? They should be holding them back. They should not be.
They had a full hour show before the NFL honors on the commercials and giving away like half the commercials before they aired. And you can always go the week of the Super Bowl and look them up on YouTube now. So it's like, what's the surprise anymore?
There isn't. You're right.
Yeah.
If you guys, there's an interesting commercial that didn't make it, and it was the PETA commercial, the animal rights activist group, and also another it was explicit. That's why I didn't make it, but supposedly eating vegetables is better than eating a steak for performance, according to them. All right, my ice up pick, the options are, there's so many. It's vast. You know, I could talk about a lot of. I really wanted to. I was thinking about the Denver players that have been crying or have been. This is that. Look, I know you got offended that it was the Cam Newton show before the Super Bowl. I know that bothered you, and the boys said that y'all are rappers because Cam said a rap. You know, they asked him to do it. I know that upset you, that you felt disrespected, but. You know, kicking dirt on a dude, kicking a man while they're down, I'm not really down on that. So I'm going to find the head dude that did this, Wade Phillips. With your old crusty ass, supposedly you like social media. I'm sorry. You should not like social media. You don't even like sitting in the box. You like standing on the field like an old school dude. Come on, he tweets this, a little dab will do you, but too much dab will undo you. And he didn't proofread it.
A little dab with do you, not will do you, with do you.
Yeah.
What does that mean? A little dab with do you?
Yeah.
Did he mean will do you?
Yeah.
I think will do.
No, he meant that, yeah.
A little dab will do you, but too much dab will undo you. Cam's crushed. The Panthers are crushed. And you got to come out and do this and poke a little fun. I know that you were just having a little fun, but what about this? What if we poked at you when you got your ass fired from Dallas for that assistant coach, and when you did an all right job? He did an all right job when he was in Dallas. He wasn't awful. We didn't come poking at you for looking like some damn grandpa off a damn 70s family show where there won't no black people in the show and it was just you in it. So to you I say, ice up, son. This is the C3 Podcast. Louie, great having you on the show. Can you tell everybody how they can get after you on social media?
Absolutely, man. It's been a blast, and I appreciate you guys letting me bless the podcast, man. I really do. You guys can find me on the Louie Tee Network.com, and I'm about to start my new series, chronicling the draft. So I'm going to be doing podcasts. I'm going to call it 7 on 7, where I break down 7 different positions, the best 7 players at those positions in the draft. So check the In the Lab Room podcast. That's on Stitcher and iTunes. You can find me on YouTube. I'm always putting video and content out on my Louie Tee Network channel, so check that out. I'm on Twitter at In the Lab Room, and I'm also on Facebook In the Lab Room there as well. So you guys come and find me, man. I'm about to cover the draft wall to wall. I'm starting a new series, Draft Prospects 101 series, starting on Thursday. So come check me out.
You guys check out Louie Tee. He does great work. I mean, he'll say this, is that even when I don't agree with him, I can recognize great work, and he did it this past week. He's done it all season. So everybody go subscribe to his channel, follow him, give him a tweet and say thank you. Tripp, tell them how they can get after you.
You can catch me on Twitter at Tripp Morgan 6. If everything sports, that's where I'll be, and then all my stuff's on CarolinaCatChronicles.com. Love working with these guys. Love talking Panthers, football in general. So you can just hit me up at Tripp Morgan 6 on Twitter, and of course at cat_chronicles. Word up.
This is the C3 Podcast. The mock funeral is over.
I'm a sore loser.
Hey, man.
We may be sore losers tonight, but the resurrection begins. You can check us out next week. We're going to be moving. Watch the numbers. No more 15. We're starting with podcast 16.1 next week, Tuesday night. I'm the professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you around.
Thanks for letting me be a pallbearer, man.